Hi, I'm your doctor, and for starters, this is the womb or the uterus. The womb has two tubes coming out of it called fallopian tubes, the right tube and the left tube. There are two ovaries, the right ovary and the left ovary, which contains follicles or immature eggs, and this is the vagina. On the onset of menses, on the second day of the menses, the brain releases two hormones. One is the F hormone, the other one is the L hormone, FSH or follicle stimulating hormone and LH or the luteinizing hormone. Usually in most women with normal cycles, the F hormone is released in larger quantities and L hormone is released in lesser quantities. The purpose of these hormones is to go out and select any one of the follicles that are lying in the ovaries. At the initial part of the cycle, there are 14-15 follicles or immature eggs in both the ovaries in a young woman. These two hormones put together would identify any such egg and the rest will all disappear. So if all the eggs disappear, only one left behind, there must be some reason why this one egg has been selected by nature. As of now, we have not been able to find out what is this factor that makes this egg unique or the chosen one. Once the egg had been selected and the rest of the eggs have disappeared, this egg or follicle keeps maturing till it reaches its size of maturity, that's around 18 or 20 millimeters on the 13th day of a menstrual cycle. Immediately after reaching maturity, the follicle wall dehisces or gives way and the fluid along with the egg is released. At that time, the fallopian tube on that side goes closer to the egg and picks it up. So once the egg is picked up by the tube, it stays inside the tube for next 12 to 24 hours. It is during this 12 to 24 hours that if you have contact with your partner, that the partner puts his semen in the vagina somewhere here. Usually the man's sperms are numbering more than 5 to 6 crores or 50 to 60 million sperms. He loses most of it after sexual contact because of the acid environment inside the vagina. But even then, there are thousands and thousands of sperms left behind. These negotiate into the uterus and swim their way close to the egg if there is no blockage anywhere. This is how almost 500 to 700 sperms come close to the egg. These sperms then dissolve the protective shell that's around the egg, and then one sperm gets to enter the egg, and this is how the fertilization takes place inside the tube on the 14th or the 15th day of your natural menstrual cycle. Once the embryo has formed, it keeps on growing in the tube for the next 5 to 7 days, and it slowly trickles down through the tube into the womb so as to implant in the womb by the 21st day of the menstrual cycle. And this is when you have actually conceived or gotten pregnant. There are other things that are also happening in the body at the same time. While the follicle was growing up, it was releasing another hormone called estradiol, which was working on the womb and preparing a lining inside for the embryo to settle down. This lining is known as endometrium. While the follicle is growing, the endometrium is building up and it is known as proliferative or a growing endometrium. Once the follicle releases the egg, the shell of the follicle stays back and that starts secreting another hormone called progesterone that makes this endometrium lining receptive, meaning now the embryo can settle in this lining. So while the egg is growing up, that's for the first 15 days of a cycle, the endometrium is not receptive because it only is containing estrogen in its endometrial lining. But once the progesterone hormone is being released from the corpus luteum, then the endometrium becomes receptive, which goes very nicely with the natural cycle because the embryo starts and settles on the 21st day. That's around after 5 days or 6 days of progesterone being released in the system. Or in other words, we need to understand that the endometrium becomes receptive only after 4-5 days of progesterone in the system, not before that. This is how a natural conception happens.